Today I'm going to transform old linen bedsheets into a vintage Dior inspired dress. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So a few weeks back I had a thrift haul and I showed you this linen bedsheet, and this week I transformed it. I had so much fun making this dress and it's much easier than you would think. So go ahead and grab yourself a tea or a coffee and let's get started. Okay, start off by laying your fabric flat, and here I'm using a duvet cover. Then you can measure your waist on the smaller part of your waist and take this measurement that you get and divide it by 3.14. Then you'll get a number that you're going to divide on 2. This number is going to be used as a radius when we're making the full circle skirt. So I'm folding the duvet cover in the middle. I'm placing the end of the measuring tape in the corner of the fold, and the pencil is placed in the number that I got. Then I'm drawing the half circle in the waist and a half circle at the length that I want on the skirt. Then I'm cutting out the full circle. Since I'm folding a duvet cover in half, I didn't have to worry about side seams because they were already made. Then I'm using the basic bodice pattern from my pattern making video, and you can watch that video to see how I made this pattern. I'm going to alter this pattern a tiny bit, so I'm taking the front pattern and I'm placing it on fold. Then I'm folding over the shoulder just a tiny bit, and I'm going to draw a wider neck opening because I'm going to have a boat neck. Then I'm going to copy the pattern exactly the way it is. And all the other pattern pieces is cut exactly how they are made in my pattern making video. I'm cutting out one outer layer and then one inner layer for lining. And I'm using the same fabric for lining and for the outer layer. But you can use cotton to line or whatever fabric you have in hand. When all the pattern pieces are cut out, I'm going to cut out the belt as well. And here I'm just pulling the fabric to make it a straight strip of fabric, and the length depends on what you like, and the width is also depending on what you like. Next, we're ready to start pinning the patterns together, and I'm pinning the side panels together with the front first, and we're going to sew up the side panels first. Sew up all the side panels and also sew up the back panel together with the side panel, and also sew up the dart on the back panel. Then you can press the seams open and sew together the inner and outer layer together, right side facing each other, but do not sew all the way up on the arm opening. Once you have sewed up the arms and neckline, you can go ahead and cut away any excess fabric to make the neckline and arms smoother. Then you can make small snips around the arm opening to make it curve nicely when you fold it right side out. Now for the shoulder seams, since we didn't sew all the way up in the armhole opening, we can fold the opening and fold the shoulder seam right side facing each other and sew up the shoulder seam, and then you can fold it over and close up the opening. I'm just closing this with a hand stitch to make it nice and clean. Next, we're attaching the skirt to the outer layer of the bodice. and sewing it together. For the back, I decided I wanted to cut a lower back, so I just folded it in half and I cut away excess fabric. I also trimmed the back a little bit to make it fit my body better. So now I had a V shape at the back, and here I'm just going to fold in the raw edge and I'm going to hand stitch it close. Next, I'm also cutting out a half circle for the lining for the skirt. I'm not going to make a full circle for this because I think it's a waste of fabric. So I'm just cutting out a half circle and I'm sewing it to the inner bodice of the dress, right side facing each other. Then I'm adding an invisible zipper to the back and I'm sewing it only to the outer layer, and I am doing that on both sides, making sure that everything matches. And then I'm going to fold the skirt right side facing each other and sew it as close to the zipper bottom as possible. And then I'm sewing it all the way down to the bottom of the skirt. And I'm pressing the seam open. Now I'm doing also the same thing on the lining skirt. I'm sewing it close from the skirt and I'm sewing it together. And I'm not attaching the zipper yet because I'm going to sew the lining together with a hand stitch. Now I'm going to try on the dress on my mannequin and I'm going to trim the bottom of the skirt to make sure that everything is level. Especially when you're working with linen, it tends to pull down a bit. So I'm just leveling the skirt. Next, I am taking a hobby interfacing that is very stiff and I'm folding it together and I'm ironing it flat. Then I'm ironing on a few more layers to make it as stiff as possible. And this is actually going to be the belt buckle. So here I have a quite stiff interfacing piece and I just found a shape that was going to work for the belt buckle, and I drew the square, and inside I drew a smaller square and then a little tube in the middle. Next, I cut out this shape and it was quite challenging to cut in this layer when it was such a small piece, but once I was able to do it, I also curved the corners to make it a little bit more smooth. Once I was happy with the cutout, I went ahead and I used my hot glue gun and I glued all over the belt buckle. And this made sure that it was as stiff as possible, and it also gave it a little curved feel to it. Next, I took some interfacing and I interfaced that belt part that I cut out earlier. So I just cut out interfacing matching the belt, and then I used my iron to press it and glue it together. After I had glued the interfacing together, I folded the edges 1 centimeter in on each side, and then I ironed it flat. Then I folded it one more time and I ironed it one more time, and then I sewed a straight stitch on each side of this belt to make it all stay in place. Next, I took the belt buckle that I made earlier and I took some scraps of fabric and I just started to twist it around the buckle that I made, and I tried to hide the raw edges. So I folded it a little bit while I was twisting it around. And this is the best way that I have figured to make covered belt buckles, because I don't know really how to do it smooth without this technique. So this is just what I have found works, and just my own solution for it. So if you have any good ideas on how to make this smoother, please let me know. So I'm just twisting it around the whole belt buckle, and then I hot glued gun the raw edge at the afterwards. And once it was done, I could take the belt inside and it fit perfectly. I placed the belt buckle at the end of the belt, and then I folded it in and I sewed a straight stitch to secure it. Next, I did a hem at the bottom of the skirt, and I just used bias binding for the hem because I feel that is the smoothest way to hem a circle skirt. For the zipper, I'm just hiding the zipper inside of the lining, and I'm folding it in, and then I'm pinning it as I go along the zipper tape. Once I had pinned the lining, I went ahead and I sewed it all together with a hand stitch. And after the hand stitch, my dress was done. And I can't wait to show you guys the result. I really hope that you liked the dress. Let's see the final reveal. That's it for today's video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it and that you will give it a try. If you haven't watched my latest video, I transformed old laced curtain into a beautiful wedding dress, and you can click the video here if you want to see it. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel for more content. I put out new videos every Friday, and I will talk to you guys next Friday. Bye!